Welcome to a special episode of Think Big with Michael Zellner, powered by Platinum Jewelers. This is part 3 in our podcast series, All Things Policing and Crime. My guests once again today, joining me for episode 123, are Mike Williams and Deon Joseph. Mike is a former Memphis police officer and former president of the Memphis Police Association. And Deon is a speaker and law enforcement officer consultant. He's been an officer in Los Angeles for over 25 years, and 23 of those years he has spent on Skid Row community of downtown Los Angeles. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me again today.
Glad to be here.
You know, before we start, I want to once again make sure that I mention that any comments made by Mike and Deon are their own thoughts and their own opinions. Have nothing to do with any law enforcement agency here in Memphis, Los Angeles, or anywhere else across the country. They're speaking for themselves today as Mike Williams and Deon Joseph. You know, to start off, Mike, you know, we touched a little bit upon this last time, but it's so important, it needs discussing. From what I'm seeing, it gets worse and worse. I'm talking about zero bail and low bail policies. You know, all across the country, there's still so many people talking about defunding the police. You know, just recently here in the last few months in Memphis, you know, 2 men shot 11 people at a Whitehaven nightclub, left 1 person dead. Initially, the shooter had a bond of $800,000, somehow was able to hire the best defense attorney in Memphis, and Judge Massey lowered the bond down to $25,000. You know, after Leslie Ballin said, "My client can't afford the $800,000." You know, supposedly showing cell phone video, the man shot in self-defense. Mm-hmm. You know, the judge actually gave a lower bond than Ballin had even requested because he didn't have a record. Now, you know, both men get to await their trial at home. You know, the alleged shooter, Marion's being charged with 5 counts of attempted second-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder. He's at home. Why does this stuff just continue, and not only here but all across the country?
Well, you have a major push by the ACLU and other organizations within different cities that are pushing the narrative that bail is not to be used in a punitive manner. And evidently that is starting to prevail across the country. A lot of the judicial systems are picking up on that because you got the ACLU filing all of these lawsuits all across the country, and either they're winning or those cities are settling with the ACLU and saying that, you know, individuals who have the ability to pay, if you set a $2 million bond and they have the money to pay the 10% cash bond, then they can, in fact, do that. Whereas you may have individuals like these people that have committed these heinous crimes, and we know that they're heinous crimes, but they can't afford the ability to be able to get out of jail. So the ACLU has said that they deserve the same rights as those individuals that can afford the bond. They're using this viral calculator or something to that effect in comparison to what your income is, what your availability of money, your availability of assets and different things like that. And believe it or not, it's given these guys almost no bond whatsoever. That's why you've seen a lot of individuals that have contested the bonds that they have been given, and those bonds are being lowered if they contest those bonds. And that's just a fact of life, man. That's how this society is going, Mike, and that's just the way it is.
You know, Deon, there was an article on the site, CaliforniaGlobe.com, entitled "Data Indicate that Zero Bail Results in More Crime." You said, quote, "Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know this. We tried to tell you," unquote. What was it that you told them was going to happen?
Well, what it is I knew that when you give the criminal element 1 inch, they're going to take 3 yards. Most people in the criminal world are master manipulators, all right? They play on people's feelings. They know how to play the victim. They know how to shed crocodile tears and get whatever they want. They know where to go to get the police and law enforcement off of their back. So they've been waiting for an opportunity like this. So that's what they did. They not only gave the criminal element an inch, they literally gave them 3 yards off the top. And now there's zero fear of consequence. These guys are bailing out and committing other crimes or even worse crimes than the ones that they initially committed in the spirit of quote unquote equity. And I believe that right now is the most dangerous word in the English language in the United States of America, because equity says there shall be equal outcomes. And in reality, there's no such thing as equal outcomes. You know, sometimes it's the severity of what the individual did that dictates or determines how much bail, how much time they get, and it has nothing to do with skin color. Many times it's their level of crimes they've engaged in their rap sheet. If you got a guy with a rap sheet that's 10 pages long full of violent crimes, you know, versus a guy who's only got 3, okay, yeah, of course, it should be different. You know, you can't expect equal outcomes. So what they're trying to do is force equal outcomes. And it's resulting in disastrous impacts across this country, especially in major cities. And common sense has gone out the window. There's no common sense anymore. Even the judges have been infected by this. We know that many of the district attorneys that are in place right now are plants, basically for decarceration activism, throwing the ACLU, throwing fanning the flames and using their legal might and influence. And what you're going to end up with is Dante's Inferno. Basically, every major city is going to be New York in the 1990s, and it's unavoidable. It's already happening. It's a tragic day in America, and I thought the pendulum was going to swing back, but unfortunately, a lot of these guys that are getting elected into these positions are backed by billionaires and millionaires and Hollywood elites who these issues don't affect them. They don't affect them. And as long as that's going to occur, we're going to keep seeing this happen across the country. And it's just going to be a really dangerous. There's going to be rarely any place you can go in America in about another 10 years where you're not going to be impacted by the criminal element if this continues.
Yeah. And we know that name, George Soros, is that big billionaire, one of the main ones that throws that money around, you know, to get all these district attorney races. And not only are they doing the district attorney races, they're going down even lower into the city council and places like that too, because they've probably figured out themselves, yeah, we got the big people, but the smaller people is where it all starts.
Yes, at city council across this country, we have what we call DSAs, I believe, Democratic Socialists of America. And I'm not knocking anyone's political belief, but these guys are getting in. And right now in some major cities, they're the minority. But in some cities, they're becoming the majority. And once they become the majority, it doesn't matter what the voters say or feel. It doesn't matter what you tweet. It doesn't matter how many times you protest in front of City Hall. They don't care because their ideas are more important than the people they are charged to protect. And we're witnessing this where I work. It's really tragic. Matter of fact, here's an example. In LA County, in the middle of the night, the board of supervisors tried to pass a law that said that anybody arrested in LA County, even for a violent felony, it's a traffic ticket. It's just a ticket. They don't even get to go to jail. You sign like a release from custody form in the field. You may have just stabbed somebody, but you get to walk with a ticket and hope you show up on your court date. That almost went through if it wasn't for somebody sounding the alarm on that. And they waited till a lot of our law enforcement officials and were in Baker to Vegas, which is a big event a lot of officers go to in Las Vegas. They tried to slip it in that weekend. So imagine what would have happened if that would have passed. That means a guy who beat his woman half to death in front of their kids, ticket. A guy who breaks into your house and assaults you, a ticket, and he's out the door. And that's all because of decarceration advocates who are slipping in and trying to slip things in and chip away at public safety, one bill at a time.
Now, I wanted to read a little excerpt of this article from a major newspaper and website. It says, this is from beginning of March, Seattle judge releases gang member accused of mass shooting to home detention with his grandmother. I'm not going to read all of it, but just a little bit. It said a Seattle man charged with murder related to a mass shooting in 2020 was released to home detention in his grandmother's house ahead of the trial. William Tolliver, 27, was charged with first-degree murder, 6 counts of first-degree assault, as well as unlawful possession of a firearm in relation to the January 2020 shooting. The shooting unfolded outside of McDonald's, left 1 woman dead, 6 others injured, including a child and a woman with intellectual and physical disabilities. A King County Superior Court judge granted Tolliver a pretrial release last Thursday, with Tolliver officially released on Wednesday. His trial, his trial begins March 13th. He's required to wear an ankle monitor, while at home with his grandmother. The King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office argued his home detention, citing he had run from police before. He was under the Department of Corrections supervision at the time of the shooting, KOMO News reported. And they said, quote, when you have somebody who has a history of not following court orders, has a half a dozen domestic violent offenses, no matter who the defendant is, that's a concern, the King County Prosecuting Office said in a statement released to him. These things are happening, just like you just said. It's within 10 years, it's now happening in cities everywhere. I mean, I think probably close to every day, if you turn on the national news, you hear stories similar to this right now, don't you guys?
Yeah. Not only that those things happen, Mike, that you referred to at the beginning of the broadcast, but I just saw a report from the Crime Commission here in the city of Memphis that homicides are up 35%. 35% from last year. Now, mind you, last year they set a record. I think they had 340 some homicides here in the city of Memphis, in a city the size of approximately 670,000 people. That is crazy. And they're committing homicides here now at an alarming rate. But that's because the individuals are getting back out on bail, and they're repeating the same criminal acts that they did to go to jail the first time. And, we have a city council here. As a matter of fact, I've been into it with one of the council people because, I do my own television show as well here in the city of Memphis. And, he called me up, Michael, well, why don't you come talk to me? They're responding to these 40 activists that are down at City Hall all the time. And I said, well, sir, but the city is comprised of 670,000 people, but you have 40 activists down there. And you're right. A lot of them have the socialist signs. Even when you had the Tyre Nichols incident here, a lot of the individuals were bussed in from out of town, and they're running around with Socialist Party signs, that has nothing to do with what happened to Tyre Nichols. But you have the city council that is doing all of these ordinances that they don't want police to stop cars. Excuse me? Hold up, sir. We got crime off the chain. We got, I think vehicle theft was up 500%. 500%. We had over 3,000 vehicles out at the impound lot. They had to stop taking vehicles out there. But you don't want us to stop cars, and you have individuals that are driving with no license. They're driving with weapons in the cars. They're out here carjacking. They're committing robberies. They're doing all kinds of things. And I had to tell the people on my show, a lot of people may not understand, but that's how a lot of times officers have the ability to stop individuals, to check to see if they do a violation in their vehicle, to see if they have licenses, to see if in fact they have narcotics in the car, to see if in fact they have illegal weapons or something to that effect in the car, to get that stuff off the street. It may not stop it, but at the same time, it deters it. We had a car chase here not too long ago. I'm sitting at a light, and a black SUV fly by me, 10 police cars fly by. And 2 minutes later, the black SUV fly by me again, and I pull over, and 10 police cars. It was a 12-year-old girl driving that car. And the way she was driving that car, it put a lot of people at risk. But you're saying we got all of these auto thefts, we got all of this crime that's occurring, but you continue to want to put handcuffs on the police and their abilities to be able to attack this crime problem that we have. And we have a lot of good citizens that actually want the police to do their jobs. But you also have the police now that are saying, you know what? I don't want to be on the news. I don't want to be that individual that's going to be violating these ordinances. I don't want to be those individuals that a lot of these organizations are going to come after in the public. So they're saying, okay, you put an ordinance in place. You don't want me to stop cars. I won't stop cars. I'm trying to tell them that you have a lot of state laws that supersede a lot of the city ordinances. So you can still do it, and please don't let the citizens feel as though they have nobody protecting them and different things of that effect. But, it's getting rough all the way around. And yes, you have some judges that are going against what the ACLU is saying, and they are looking at each individual case on a case-by-case basis. And if this individual is a repeat offender or they think that he is a nuisance or a threat to society, then they leave those $1 million bonds, $2 million bonds on those guys so that it's going to be very hard for them to get out. So the pendulum has not swung back the other way. And I thought it was going to eventually anyway, because we know that a lot of times it swings left and then it swings back right. And the police get the support or what have you. But, these guys are out here hard. And for some reason, they do have the ability to get individuals on councils and commissions and all of that. They're infiltrating, and they don't want, for some reason, the police to get out here and to do the job to make it better, safer for the citizens out here in the city.
Yeah, it's what it does to the police officer, and this is what I'm hearing from officers across the country. So you're creating these ordinances and laws and hindrances for the sake of ending racism, right? But the state says you can still enforce. So let's say an officer is still enforcing the law and he knows he has something really serious and he has to stop a suspect, but he ends up violating one of these ordinances. That automatically makes him or her a racist because those laws are put in place to stop racism. I mean, if you remember San Francisco with good old Chelsea Bolin, where he told officers no traffic stops and then he actually made the drug dealers the victims. Why? Because of racism. Okay, so now if the officers do a traffic stop, they are now proving that the system is racist because we just ended racism with an ordinance. It's a trap. So if any big city listening to me right now, if you're listening to me right now, there's a pattern to how your city falls. And I'm watching it. I've watched it in LA. I've watched it in Austin, Texas. We're seeing it in San Francisco. We're seeing it in New York. There's a pattern. What they do is a lot of these activist groups, they don't really give a damn about Black people per se. They don't care. What they care about is exploiting Black death at the hands of the police, whether it's justified or not. And if it is justified, we're going to do everything we can to brainwash the public to think that the officers were in the wrong. And sadly, it works. So they use this to galvanize their troops. So watch, pay attention. And they start going to your city council meetings and they start going to your police commission meetings and they flood it. And here's the reason why they flood it. Because they're trying to create the appearance that these are the voices of Los Angeles. These are the voices of Detroit. These are the actual voices. And they yell and scream. And what their goal is to wear down and intimidate your commission or your city council members or your mayor. That's their goal. Because they actually begin to believe that this is what the public wants. Now, the real public, which is probably 80% of the population who doesn't want this, they can't make these meetings. You know why? Because they have mouths to feed. Yep. They have a job. They have to take care of 3 kids and pick them up and to and fro from school. They have to go work 3 or 4 jobs. So even though they support having crime controlled, they support law enforcement, they don't have the time. This is literally these activists' job. That's their job. Somebody's paying these guys to take over cities through city council and intimidate and impose their will. So when you start seeing that in your city, that is the first sign that your city is about to fall. Then what happens is their tactics actually work. Okay, they find an incident, they racialize it, they put pressure on the city council, and next thing you know, they start bowing. They start trying to appease these people. Okay, but then once you appease them, you end up, excuse my French, pissing off your own constituents when appeasing them causes an uptick in crime. So what do these people do? They get rid of you. That's exactly what they want. So once they get rid of you, that leaves a vacant spot for who? Their people to slip in, and they slip them in under the guise of equality, all these beautiful rose-colored words. And next thing you know, you got an actual dangerous person sitting on your commission or your city council. I'm asking big cities to listen to every word I say. If you start seeing this, I saw this happen in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas was a beautiful city. They called me out there to testify about how not allowing your city to become a homeless industrial complex. There's better ways to help the homeless than taking a hands-off approach. But at that time, I think they only had 1,000 homeless. Okay, and I said, if you guys do what you're about to do, guess what? You're going to have 4,000 in the next 4 years. Guess how many homeless they have now? Over 4,600. Everything I said came to pass. And I saw their DSAs taking over. They wouldn't allow me to speak the first time I went. They knew I had the experience. They knew I was telling the truth. So they flooded the city council and they would not allow me to speak until it was time for me to go catch my flight. And then I had to catch my flight and I never got a chance to speak. They brought me back again. Once again, they tried to shut me down. And I said, okay, it's 1,000 now. It's going to be 4,000 later. And they're at 4,600. So we're telling the truth. We, the officers, we don't have a dog in the fight. Actually, we're some of the most honest people you'll ever meet because we're not poisoned with political ideologies one way or the other for the most part. We are touching the issue like nobody's business. We're picking up the bodies on the sidewalk. We're calling the coroner, okay? We're covering the bodies on the street, okay? We're seeing, some poor mom who now can't even use her car because someone took her Cadillac converter for the 4th time, and she can't even take her kids to school because of it, okay? So we're seeing all this firsthand and nobody listens to us and they're trying to silence us. That's why they don't want police officers involved in anything now. I mean, ask yourself in a big city, when's the last time you saw a police officer honored in City Hall for good work? Haven't seen it in a minute. Because when's the last time you've seen a police officer, a line officer at the table discussing serious issues as it relates to crime? When we are the liaison, we are hearing the voices of the community saying this is what we want. But when's the last time you had a police officer at the table discussing these issues? They don't want even police officers at the table so they can continue to press this narrative. So once again, if you're a big city and you start seeing that, be afraid. You're about to lose your city until you guys get involved. You might have to have your kid take an Uber to school or back
right.
Home. Show up at that city council meeting, show up at the police commission and let them know because these folks' tactics, they actually work. It's a strategy and it works.
Are you shopping for a new watch, an engagement ring, any kind of jewelry at all? What's up, Memphis? This is Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Grizzlies, encouraging you all to shop where I shop, Platinum Jewelers here in Memphis. Platinum Jewelers has a big selection of earrings, stockable rings, luxury watches, necklaces, bracelets, really whenever you need. 9387 Poplar next to Fresh Market in Germantown. So if you need anything jewelry related, go to my spot, Platinum Jewelers.
The cities that have, tried to defund the police departments, and some have done it, they've suffered tremendously because of this. And interesting that Deon, you mentioned Austin, Texas, because just recently in Austin, a city council member was reportedly on hold with 911 for 28 minutes about calling about the street racing taking over that took place back on Saturday, February 18th. The street racers took over an intersection, drifted in the middle of the street, setting off fireworks, people looking on. There was tons of mayhem going on. One law enforcement officer was injured. Several police cars got damaged while this was going on. The Austin Police Association said, quote, Austin policymakers are directly responsible for the overall safety of the citizens and visitors. Looks like they failed to make the right decisions and continue to defund, destroy, and demoralize public safety. Austin was one of the safest cities, not anymore, unquote.
Nope.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, it was like night and day. The first time I went, I was able to walk down 6th Street, which is their main corridor with all the bars and everything.
Yeah.
And it was, I saw it was kind of gritty, but it wasn't too bad. When I came back the second time, I'm not afraid of anything but God. I was literally kind of nervous being in the area. I had never seen anything switch from night and day that fast. And the sad thing is, I knew it would happen. And I'm one of these guys, I don't want to be right. I wish that their ideas actually work, that you can slap a criminal on the wrist and he's going to thank the Lord and never commit a crime again. But that's not reality. That is not reality. And we have to put public safety first. We have to put crime control first. And when we have judges refusing to do it, DAs refusing to do it, we are all in trouble. We are, and now all the way up to probably vice presidents and presidents of the United States. I mean, our vice president was an advocate for the bail policy. A huge advocate for it. There's no hope. There's no hope. And the only ones that can fix this right now are the voters. the voters. And sadly, with mail-ins and everything else like that, there are a lot of uninformed voters now just throwing their name in the hat, throwing the vote away because the name they knew told them to vote. Maxine Waters said, vote this way. Oh, I know Maxine Waters. Okay, I'm going to do exactly, but they're not looking at their neighborhoods and what's happening in their communities. So the key is we got to, whoever's a crime control advocate who's running on that platform, you got to get to these communities and reach these mail-in voters who are not going to come to the rally. They're not going to come. They're just going to do what's told. Somebody's going to go door to door and say, hey, I'm with, Maxine Waters. She cares about the community. You know everything's racist. This is who you need to vote for. They need to have advocates on the other side doing the same thing to balance this out. Or else, like I said, big cities across this nation are going to fall, like Chicago. I mean, pay attention to Chicago. Chicago literally voted to get rid of Lori Lightfoot, one of the worst mayors I've ever seen in history. And I have friends in Chicago and cop buddies in Chicago and communications operators who I know in Chicago. And they're saying she was the worst. How do you vote out the worst mayor you've ever had by a large margin, and then you vote in a more extreme version of her who won't even call crime what it is? Instead, he says, don't demonize these poor kids for destroying your community. Oh, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. They're using the mechanism of racism as a tool to scare people into voting for these dangerous politicians. And it's working. Like I said, you got to give them credit. It's working. And until the average American wakes up and has had enough, we're in trouble. Not just law enforcement. I'm talking about the average citizen. We're all in trouble.
You know, Mike, I know a lot of police officers in here in Memphis, and many of them I met through you and work with the Police Association. I've talked to a lot of people off the record. A lot of these guys tell me, and girls, they're scared to do their job.
Yes.
They're scared.
Yes. Well, since the first quarter of 2023, we've had 4 police officers that have been shot in the city. That's, I'm not going to say unheard of, but that's alarming because we never really had that type of continuance of officers being confronted, officers being assaulted. There was a video that was out the other day, Mike. I don't know if you saw it, where on Airways, broad daylight, police was having a shootout with an individual right by a convenience store. And he ran down to South Haven, Mississippi, and they caught him down in South Haven, and they were able to stop him down there. But the other thing that these councils and commissions and individuals that are putting these mechanisms in place that allows the criminals the ability to be able to continue to operate, they are crippling police departments because, like I said earlier, they're afraid to do something because a lot of times it may put them in a position, especially here in the city of Memphis right now, because you just had the Tyree Nichols incident that has occurred. And we are losing police officers again. They don't want to be police officers. Even my son, who's a 10-year veteran, he's talking about leaving because he was on the task force. He was, all of that good stuff and out there really attacking crime. But, he's thinking about doing something else, getting into another field, because a lot of police officers can see the handwriting on the wall. You're either going to allow me the ability to be the police or I'm going to have to get out of this because you're setting me up to be killed. You're setting me up to be attacked. You're setting me up for failure. And I have a family to go home to, and I want to make sure that I watch my kids grow up. So if I get out of this, believe it or not, I'm not bound by the same things that the police are bound by, because you see a lot of citizens that are starting to take matters into their own hands now. I think the other day you had somebody who was trying to break into somebody's home or something like that, and they were shot and killed. So it's frightening. I go a lot of places, and I'm not normal here in the city of Memphis. You got to watch how you move, because I go a lot of places and I have to be careful how I'm moving. And especially if I have my family with me, my daughter, my wife, different things like that. A lot of places I used to go, I don't go anymore. I have to make sure that, I'm going to provide to the best of my ability, a safe environment for them wherever we go. So, yes, it is getting dangerous for police, Mike. And a lot of them are not liking it, and they feel as though they're put into a compromising position.
And on top of it being dangerous for us now, the bigger issue is having officers come on for the future safety of the country. That's the other huge issue, because now we have people who wanted to be police officers. I know a kid who wanted to be who was taking criminal justice because he wanted to be a police officer. Guess who talked him out of it? His criminal justice professor, who kept showing him montages of police officers murdering Black people, right? And this is how they treat all Black people. And the data doesn't even support that. But once again, these college professors, they have the bully pulpit, and they're part of this decarceration, abolish the police movement. And of course, they're going to guide these young, impressionable minds away from, they're literally trying to destroy America, because in their mantras, the best way to fix America, you got to destroy it first and then build it back up the right way. So they have no problem just stripping public safety away, because that's the problem. Public safety is racist. So, and they keep repeating these things. We got to abolish prisons because it's wrong to put somebody in a cage. But it's wrong to put a guy who had a kitty who filmed kitty porn with 13 kids. It's wrong to put him in a cell. That's racist. So they're convincing these kids they're dissuading them away from law enforcement and even the military. Even the military is having trouble, from what I understand, recruiting because of the anti-police and anti-America sentiment. That's before they even think about becoming a law enforcement. Now let's talk about law enforcement. That between the anti-police rhetoric, between the politicians that have completely turned their back on them, others who won't apologize for turning their back on us, they're still choosing to treat their police officers like a necessary evil instead of an important part of the city family. And like I told you before, during the George Floyd riots, I would have gladly taken as many rocks and bottles as you threw at me, if I would have heard just one politician say, "Hey, that wasn't our cops. We didn't do that."
Right.
Or "Hey, you're upset. I'm upset. I think that what happened in Minneapolis was wrong, but you're not going to come down here and destroy the city. We're not going to let you come down and hurt our cops. Our cops are going to do their job, and you will be held to the highest." I would have stood there 10 toes down gladly if somebody would have said that. Nobody said that. They just threw us under the bus, backed over us, and then sent us out there again. It was just a horrible, vicious cycle. So now you have officers who are currently still on the job, some who quit, some who retired early, but the ones who are still on the job, who are still bitter and are still hurt by that, on top of hearing that in every turn where we want to go out there and reduce crime, we're having city council members, county supervisors, tie another arm. It's like they want us to fight crime like this so we don't appear racist. And it's just insane. Have you seen a police department lately? Have you been to a roll call at a big city? They're the most diverse places on the planet. They don't want to see that. They want to continue to push that there's a bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed centurions out there, or stormtroopers, still out there hurting Black people. And none of that is true. None of that is true for the most part. And then, the third part is now you got officers quitting. Okay. So we have officers retiring and quitting. We can't hire officers on the job. And then for the officers that are left behind, like Mike said, they're playing it safe. Let me tell you, the biggest joy I ever had for the first 20 years of my career was going out there and aggressively and professionally getting bad guys off the street. There was no satisfaction greater. That's what I lived for, giving the community some relief from the activity of a dangerous criminal. By that, putting him in jail, high bails where they can't get out and hurt people again. And hopefully I want them to have a fair trial. I believe in that. Hopefully they get convicted and they do as much time as possible for the community I serve to feel a sense of relief. That's gone. So even the officer who's highly motivated as I am, I have my days where I'm like, gosh, why am I doing this? Right. Why am I doing this? But the reason I'm doing it is because even if all I have is high visibility to try to deter crime, I'm still saving more lives than the people who criticize us. That's the only thing that keeps me on. But let me tell you something. It's hurtful. It's hard to watch. It's hard to stomach.
In so many cities across the nation after the George Floyd happened, in Minneapolis, they were destroying their own neighborhoods. Like they were destroying neighborhoods where, African Americans live. And I remember seeing this one woman crying on television. She's like, that's the only grocery store near me. Well, that's where I get my pharmacy. I don't have anywhere else to go. And they're destroying their own neighborhoods. And to me, a lot of it, a lot of those people, I'm not saying not all of them, but many of them didn't care about George Floyd. Some of those people just wanted to get out there and just cause chaos and havoc and just destroy things because it just gave them a chance to do it.
Well, usually in situations like that, when it's locals, people who live in the area, that flashpoint is only going to last about a week and a half. These weren't all locals. The vast majority of people who are out there burning down neighborhoods and communities were people who were strategically flown in from out of state.
Right.
Once again, I called it organized chaos. This was organized. Why am I in LA trying to stop riots and everybody I stopped was from Alabama, Dallas, Chicago? What is going on? And of course, that's a strategy because if you're from the state and there's another warrant, you get arrested, you get a warrant's issued for your arrest for court. Guess what? They're not going to extradite you. So this was a strategy. This was a planned attack, and that's what people don't understand. This is what I got from working the ground. These are people who weren't even at every major city who struggled with this. We're saying the same exact thing, yet we ignore it. Anybody who comes in from another state to destroy another city, they should get serious time. If I was that city, this is my city. You can't come to my city and do this. But nope, slap on the wrist, ticket, enjoy your First Amendment right to destroy my city.
I definitely.
That's what happened. That's what happened. Would you agree, Mike?
Oh, most definitely. Just like I spoke earlier, even with the Tyree Nichols incident, Tyree Nichols' mother was calling for calm and nonviolence, and you had individuals that they went up on the bridge again to shut down the bridge. And a lot of those individuals that went up there, like I said, they were brought in, they were bussed in, they were flown in. I mean, because I know most of the activists in this city. I know them personally. And yes, there were some of them up there and some individuals from the neighborhoods went up, but you didn't have the crowd that you did with the last assault on the bridge because a lot of people didn't feel the same way about the incident. And the other thing was, like I said, a lot of the individuals that were up there actually protesting. And one of the news reporters even asked them, because I guess they picked up on it. They were so bold. They had all of these socialist party signs. You're in Memphis, Tennessee. And don't get me wrong, I'm quite sure you may have some socialists here, but not like that. And you don't have a presence on a daily basis of somebody throwing the Socialist Party in your face. I don't know of a headquarters here in the city of Memphis. I don't know of a lot of individuals that I can say are related to the party, even though I'm quite sure that there are some individuals, but they haven't been as visible. But the reporter even asked them, "Excuse me, are you from here?" And the young lady said, "No, I'm not. I'm from Atlanta." "Well, what are you doing here?" "Well, I'm here because of Tyree Nichols and the cause for Tyree Nichols." Then he stopped another individual. "What organization do you belong to?" "The New Socialist Party," what have you. The same party that the other individual said, "Are you from Memphis?" "No, I'm not." "Where are you from?" "I'm from Oregon." "What? You're from Oregon? Wait a minute." So we got all of these people coming in from all over the place that are from the New Socialist Party, and they're here in Memphis, and they're demonstrating in regards to Tyree Nichols. How can that be? What do you get out of this? You know what I mean? Well, yeah. Like Deon said, it's a part of the big picture, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of this is happening. A lot of money is being thrown behind it. A lot of individuals are being put into offices in strategic places politically in cities, and they are utilizing. And that was one of the things that I think I talked about on one of my shows as well. You can't tell me how to be black. I am black. You can't tell me what offends me as a black man. You can't tell me how my family feels because I'm sort of the patriarch of my family. So I got a good feel for how my sisters feel, how my nieces and nephews feel, because we have discussions, we have interactions, we talk about causes, we talk about moving forward, moving this family forward and different things like that. So, and it pisses me off a lot of times because even the daggone activists, some of them are white. You try to tell me how to be black and what I'm supposed to be concerned about. How can you tell me what I'm supposed to be concerned about? Look, I marched in 1968 with Martin Luther King. I've been involved in the civil rights struggle. I know what it is to be black. I was in the first black class that was bused here in the city of Memphis to an all-white school in Fraser. Don't try to tell me how I'm supposed to feel. Don't try to tell me what's going on in my community. I know that the black community, in my black community, I have to tell them a lot of times, look, y'all got to stop. You got to start taking responsibility for what's going on in our community. You got to stop trying to push the blame off on somebody else. Ain't nobody coming in here to save you, us, whomever, whatever it is that you want to say. This is our city. You have Memphis, which is a predominantly African-American city, which has a predominantly African-American city council, which had a black mayor, which has a predominantly black county commission for Shelby County, which has a black mayor. And I'm not trying to say that they should treat black people any better than anybody else, but I'm saying, Jesus, when you see that they deny money going into the black community, when they have fiduciary responsibility, when you see that they try to get out of paying for education, when they are responsible for the funding in the county of the school system. Now, all of these people that control all of this is black. So stop trying to tell me what white people are doing. I know there may be some things, but guess what? A lot of those individual blacks have been placed in those positions by influential individuals that have money. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because when you talk about a school, the county budget that's over $3 billion, you talk about the city's budget, that's about $1 billion. When you talk about contracts, when you talk about all of these different things that have to be given out through the city council or through the county commission, they're paying money for that. But it's also, I sit there and say, well, we have to invest in people. We have to invest in people. If we don't invest in people, then these are some of the things you're going to get. If they do not have a vested interest in this community or feel as though these young people that they have a vested interest in this community, then we're going to continue to have problems like this as well. It is a big problem. It is getting so big now and so out of control. It's like this herd of elephants. They were grazing by the river. They were startled. Now they're starting to move. And I also agree with Deon. If we don't hurry up and do something, it reminds me of these movies I used to see, futuristic movies. How everything was desolate. Everybody's scrambling to find food. Everybody's, hey, okay.
Escape from New York, Terminator.
Yes.
Yeah.
I I keep feeling like we're headed in that direction, Mike, for real. And that's scary.
I've been telling people it feels like we're in a bizarro world. It's like I woke up one day and everything was just completely flipped upside down. Everything was right was wrong. Everything was wrong was right. But another thing on these socialists is what they do, socialists, the communists, and all these folks. And once again, I'm not here to bash anyone's political ideology. I'm just telling the truth from what I'm seeing on the ground. Their tactic, once again, is to exploit a situation, right? Exploit that situation over and over and over again, engage in propaganda to convince the public that they're the answer. And that's why these socialist types show up when there's a shooting of a black person by the police. They want to show that, see, this is proof. It's one incident out of 800,000 cops who police 330 million people. Right?
There's Benjamin Crump.
This one incident proves why America needs to fall, and we are the solution. And that's why they show up, okay? And they're getting stronger. The scary thing is they're getting stronger, and it's happening right under our noses. So once again, The only answer is the voter. The American voter has to wake up and say enough's enough. And I don't think they've had enough yet. But by the time you get to the point to where it's enough, I think it's going to be irreversible because they're putting things in place where it's going to be almost in constitutional amendments.
Yes.
And city charters and things like that. Once it's there, even a good DA or even a good governor who finally steps in, who actually wants to reverse this, won't be able to. They won't even be able to. They can only do Band-Aid approaches, which will do no good because you don't put a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. When has that ever worked?
Right.
It's becoming a gaping wound. And it's sad to see. It's really sad to see.
One of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot is the mental capacity and the mental difficulty and mental health on police officers today on all the stuff that's going on. Every assignment that, police officer goes on, they never know what's going to happen. Officer could be witnessing something that could be, very disturbing. Far too many incidents now of, suicide, child abuse, depression, PTSD, anxiety, domestic violence that, many a times are side effects of the strain that officers, go through all the time. Do you guys, talking about the mental health law enforcement officers, don't you think that it has been far too overlooked for such a long time now?
Well, absolutely. The mental health of officers are very important, or any first responder, because we are responding to the failures of society. And also, oftentimes, that can be very traumatic. I still have it burned in my head when I found a 7-year-old boy under an apartment complex who had been abandoned by his mother and assaulted in the worst of ways. And she just left him while she went to the club every night to go find her a man. That's still here. I haven't been able to shake that. I've been able to shake some of the fights I've been in, and when I'm in it, first I'm like, why? This person doesn't know me. Why am I fighting with this person? But just the fact to know that somebody can just flip on you and fight you, who not even know you, not even know that you're actually there to help and turn on you. And these things are in our head. On top of that, like I said, city officials refusing to apologize and say, hey, you know what? We were wrong.
Yeah.
An apology would go a long way.
Absolutely.
With officers who are on the job right now, just struggling to hang on. They're hanging on to this job by a thread, okay? And if somebody just said, you know what, the last administration left you guys hanging, but you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to judge you guys as individuals, not as a group. If an individual F's up, guess what? We're going to deal with it. But we are not going to degrade the entire position. I'm sorry. Or someone who is thinking about, you know what, maybe there does need to be mental health services, more expanded mental health services for police officers. You do it for everybody else. You're doing it for criminals. Okay, why not for the good guys, who are out there putting it on the line every day? No one's thinking about that and the emotional toll that it's taken on officers just in the last, I would say, 10 years, because before 2014, let me tell you something. I didn't need no shrink. Policing was my therapy. Getting out there, stopping that rapist, stopping that gang member, finding out who the big dope dealer was and getting him off the street, building relationships. That was my therapy. But what do you do when you don't have that anymore? And now you're just out. What you end up doing, you just end up going through the motions and you end up trepid about doing the job. And it doesn't make you a bad person, especially not nowadays. Like I said, when they're treating you like a stepchild of the city or an unwanted part of the city family, that can have disastrous effect on your psyche and your desire to go out there and protect people, because now you got to think about your own family. What if I go out there and like these 7 CHP officers who ended up getting charged with manslaughter? All I'm doing is holding the guy down so a nurse can inject him with some sleepy juice so he can stop tripping, right? And next thing you know, I get cleared, but then the district attorney is now charging us for murder, including the nurse. What the hell is that? So now you have officers who are like, oh my God, this is the Twilight Zone. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, so it's very disheartening. A lot of officers do need a lot of counseling, and they need city leaders to step up and say, you know what, we do support what you do. We need you guys. And until that gets said, ain't nothing changing.
Mike, you had to have seen that all the time as president of the Police Association. I mean, I remember being there, I think a few different times you told me officers coming there to talk to you guys, just having, mental situations they need to talk to somebody about.
Yeah. Well, we did get with the city and get some mental health services put in place. for officers, because initially a lot of officers were afraid to ask for it. But because of the increase in exposure to horrific situations, we felt that there was a need, because it wasn't going to do the citizens any good if, in fact, the officers were no good. Because it's just like at the military, man. When you're out here, you feel as though you're in a combat zone. You develop post-traumatic stress disorder, and you have to have some method of release to be able to talk it out, to be able to solve those problems, to be able to walk through it. Now, like Deon said, man, it's going to be there. I'm telling you, it's going to be there. I think about, one day, individual shot in the neck and in the head. I'm holding him. He dies in my arms. Leave that call that same day, Mike. Go over to an apartment complex. A 10-year-old boy was shot through the eye, and he died as well. I'm talking about, those are things that you'll never be able to erase from your mind. You just have to find coping mechanisms and ways to be able to deal with it. Now, you don't want people to start self-medicating, alcoholism, drugs, different things like that. So you definitely need to provide those mental health services so that they can, in fact, have the ability to sit down, try to decompress, try to talk to somebody, to be able to talk that stuff out, so they're not going home. They're not, having these situations with their spouses and, taking it out on their kids and different things like that, because a lot of times police officers do want to be strong, and they think that they are, machines, even though they aren't. And that's one of my concerns, because as the crime has escalated, so now you have these officers that are being exposed over and over and over. And not only.
You just got muted, Mike. You're muted, Mike. There you go.
For assistance. But now they're being shot at here in the city of Memphis a lot. So now they're dealing with their traumatic situations, because they're actually the victims, where people are shooting at them. And then they have to go through the mental process of, do I engage this guy? And I'm afraid of that as well, because of all of the things that they're putting in place. You have officers that may be hesitant to engage these people, because, God, if I engage this guy, then they're going to have me on the news. And if I happen to kill him, then they're going to say, I shouldn't have shot him, and da 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 da. It's just beginning to be too much. People are making it too complicated and muttering the waters. That's why I say it's easier for me as a citizen. I can plead self-defense, and believe it or not, if the guy got a gun, he's approaching me, I'm in fear for my life, I engage him. 9 times out of 10, the court system is going to side with me, and a lot of times the police department and the DA's office will not even prosecute. Hello. But if I got on that gun and that badge, because I am an authority figure, because there is those 40 people, activists, that are saying, oh God, they're so horrendous, they treat Black people like, crap, this, that, and the other. And me, Mike, I have no problem with saying, you got bad police officers. There's some ignorant folk out there. Deal with that booty. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Get them away from me, because I don't want them doing anything to me or to my children, my grandchildren, my friends, this community. We don't need them. But you got that large percentage of decent officers that are from the city of Memphis, that were born and raised here, that were educated here, that believe in protecting and serving the citizens of the city of Memphis. We need to stand by them. We need to enable them, and we need to let them know that it's okay. Go out there and get that damn criminal. Get that ass. Excuse my language. Get it. And I got you.
Absolutely.
Now, if you out there, you're acting ignorant, you're doing some stuff you ain't supposed to, guess what? I got you too, but I got you the other way.
Right.
All right. So we need to hold police responsible and accountable. We need to hold the citizens responsible and accountable. And we need to hold those elected officials responsible and accountable. And that's the only way we're going to fix this, because we all have to come together to be able to fix the problems that we have and that we're facing. Because if not, then I am afraid that we're going to have escape from New York eventually.
Yeah, eventually, I agree with you. It would definitely happen. Deon's phone died. He just sent me a text message to say apologize, but this is a perfect place for us to stop because I plan on having to stop right here anyway. We can pick this up again here in the next month or so because still so much more to talk about. So, Mike, thank you for coming on again today.
Thank you.
Deon, thanks for coming on today, and we will continue this talk here very soon. Have an awesome day.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Thanks for your time, Mike.
Bye.
Thanks, Deon. Take care.